who will share their experience, strength, and hope for about 30 to 40 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me? Hey, my name is Mike. I am a tweaker and a heroin addict and an alcoholic and a stoner and all the things. I never really met a substance that I did not like, but my clean date is 2/25/17. I have a home group. It's on Tuesday night in San Jose. I have a service commitment at that home group. I am the treasurer. I have a sponsor. I am a sponsor. I have worked the 12 steps, and I still go to meetings on a regular basis. I do a lot of service work for CMA in particular. Most of it is at the general service level, which is like CMA North America. Right now, I am the Northwest Regional Trustee, the outgoing board secretary, the outgoing H&I co-chair, and incoming H&I advisory chair. And those are just all the things I can think of off the top of my head. I also do an H&I meeting every couple months in San Jose, and am anxiously waiting to get my background check approved to go start doing that work in jails and prisons. Very exciting. So I was very different back in the day. Let's go back to the beginning. I grew up in a semi-normal household. We weren't abused physically in any way. We didn't go without anything. Like a pretty decent chance at life. The structure of our home was emotionally fucked up, but I didn't realize that at the time. And then, around the age of 13, I started to find other things to do with my time. And I can remember the first time ever actually getting stoned. I had smoked weed a couple times before that and been like, nothing's happening, this is dumb. And then the first time I actually felt that head change, I was with a friend, it was after school, we were like in the woods behind my house, and I turned to him and I was like, we're gonna do this every fucking day. And I meant it. Like everything else in the world in my mind had disappeared, and I wanted that feeling to just keep on going. Should have been like a red flag, but I didn't think of it that way. It was fun. It was exciting. I could think back to those times when the DARE officers would come to school when I was in like elementary school and bring in the suitcase of drugs. And I remember looking at that suitcase when they bring it in with like delight. Oh my God, that looks exciting. So, that just continued. The first time I got drunk, I would pass out throwing up drunk, right? Because I was just taking shots and like, oh, I like this, so let's do more and more and more. And that just kept going. It went to acid and mushrooms. The first time I ever dropped acid was very exciting. I think I was like 15 at the time. Friends' parents were out of town. We all stayed up all night, multiple hits of acid, and my mom came to pick me up the next day, and she knew something was off because I was still fucked up, and she did not miss a beat, and she drove me straight to a outpatient treatment center and had them do an evaluation on the spot. We did not even go home first. And I lied. Of course I lied. This is the first time I've ever done drugs. I was just experimenting. It was really scary, so I'm not going to do it again. Like, so manipulative. And they're like, oh no, you're fine. This is just a one-time thing. This is what they told my mom, and she was pissed because she knew better. But that was like my first experience with getting in trouble and getting away with it. And this was a thing that continued for years until I stopped getting away with it. High school continued just like that. I didn't have a lot of consequences back then. It was really fun. It was cool. I was just doing those things, the alcohol, the weed, and hallucinogenics, and everything was fine. As long as I'm not a fucking heroin junkie, because there were heroin junkies in my high school. It looked really ugly from the outside, and I'm never going to be one of those, or I'm never going to be the person that's doing crank, because they're fucking crazy. what I'm doing is okay, right? And then, post high school, I started taking a lot of pills, and Oxycontins were very popular back then, and I fell in love with those fucking things so hard. There came a day when those ran out, and I started to get dope sick for the first time, and was like, well, let's go get some heroin. It's like very quick, I crossed that line. Very quickly, but at least, I'll just smoke it because I'm not going to do needles because that's what the real junkies do, and all this like bullshit I would feed myself to make it okay to do what I was doing. Until one day, smoking it was not enough. It wasn't enough to keep me okay. And then I crossed that other line I had drawn in the sand of the needles very quickly, and then I fell in love with doing drugs that way. But the last thing on that the last line in the sand was meth. I am never going to be a tweaker. They're crazy. They stay up all night. I don't understand it because I was like very much in the nod squad for many years and loved it and did not understand why someone would want to stay up all night and do crazy shit like that. But I didn't get into that until a little later. I got my first felony very quickly after I started using drugs with needles. Shocking, right? The desperation with that is wild. And I got diversion. They said, well, as long as you're okay for 6 months and you do this, this, and that. It was very simple instructions. Just do these things, and we can expunge this off your record, and it's just a one-time thing, right? Less than a month later, I got another felony because I didn't want to follow those instructions because I knew a better way. I was smarter than those instructions. I was smarter than everybody else. Like, I had this attitude of I can figure this out on my own, or I can find a way to work around these systems to still keep doing what I want to do, and that's getting fucked up. That was my first experience spending a night in jail. The first night ever in jail, it was pretty bad. Looking back, I can laugh on it, but at the time, I was terrified. And so when they came in the next morning and were like, you can get out of jail if you get into drug court. Today, we'll let you out. I was like, of course that's what I want to do. That's exactly what I want to do. And I got out and I didn't follow any of the instructions because I thought I had a better way and went right back to what I was doing. But it was more complicated now because I had to find a way to fake my UAs, to lie to my probation officer, to sign my own meeting slip, to circumvent all these things that were trying to help me, right? Until I got caught doing that, and unmanageable is going into drug court, the courtroom full of people, and the judge pulling out the device that I tried to use to fake my UA and slapping it on the table in front of everyone and then sending me to jail. But I still thought I had it figured out, right? I found other ways to get around it. Well, they can't test for drinking, so I'll just be an alcoholic for now. And my life continued in that way, I don't know, for 15 years. It was a never-ending cycle of being on some form of probation, stumbling my way through life, getting high, getting money, going to jail, because, I eventually hit a point where I was totally unemployable, so I would commit crime to support my habit. And then one day, I was working at the time. I moved to Vegas for a few years, and I'm going to skip that story because it's very messy and we'd be here all night. But I was there for 4 years. Thought moving away would help things, but let's move to Vegas is a great idea. It was not. The house burnt down. Was just one of the things that happened there that was oh, something's wrong, I should move home. But I didn't change the way I was living anytime I moved anywhere. I would always find something, whether it was alcohol, and then I would get bored with alcohol, and I would go to a Walgreens and watch the payphone, because back then it was payphones, and see the drug addicts go to the payphone and then be like, hey, I got money, let me get your number, blah, blah, blah. And so I was back from Vegas. I was trying to kind of hold it together. I was working at this bar, and everyone who worked there, all of a sudden I started to notice they would take little trips into the office together, and they would come out all happy. And this addict was like, I don't know what you're doing in there, but I want some. And they're like, are you sure? I was like, yes. And that was the first time I had shot meth. I was totally fucking dazzled from that second, and decided, again, this was something that I wanted to do every single day from this point forward. And so not only was I strung out on heroin, I picked up a daily meth habit on top of it. And it's like, oh, well, I can mix them together and it'll be fine, and we'll find a way to make this work. And that, so the desperation of the heroin mixed with the insanity of the meth made my life crazy. I quit that job very quickly because I was too busy staying up all night and doing crazy stuff, right? As we do. And started hanging out with a bunch of crazy people, and my crime level really started to peak. So I'll share one of the stories. So this was how I got into prison the first time. I was on probation, of course, for something that I can't remember exactly what it was. And my drug dealer showed up on my doorstep one day, and she was in a panic, and she needed some help. The CPS had come to take her baby. She gave birth to her baby. They found meth in her system, put her on some kind of program, and she didn't do any of the treatment or anything, so they came to take the kid, and she ran. Her and her boyfriend took the kid and ran. But it was just her on my doorstep, and she was crying and needed help, and in my head I'm like, well, I can get something out of this, right? And so I rented them a hotel room with my ID, got my bag of dope and left, and that came around to bite me so hard. I remember, and then a couple days later, I was out all night, probably out a couple nights, but I came home, and when I walked in the door, my brother was watching the 5 o'clock news, and there is my face on Fox 12's Most Wanted. One of my crowning achievements in addiction. A very big oh fuck moment. And at the time I didn't think, I need to quit doing drugs. It was like, okay, I gotta make this plan, I gotta run, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And it was only a matter of time before the cops picked me up, and then I went to jail, and that was my first trip to prison for, I can't remember exactly what the charge was. They initially charged me with kidnapping and then reduced it down to rendering criminal assistance. That's what it was. Very scary. And again, I'm detoxing in jail. I'm promising myself this is going to be the last time, and this is the 100th time. This is going to be the last time, though, because prison's very serious. Until I went to prison and lost the fear of going to prison. And so when I got out, the first thing I did before the prison disappeared in the rearview mirror was to grab a pipe and start smoking some more meth. Because I didn't have a plan. I didn't want to do these meetings. This was my last resort. 100% my last resort. I thought everyone here was crazy. I thought this is where the lanes ended up. I didn't want to be crying about my problem. I had this vision of recovery that just seemed awful in my head. And obviously I was totally wrong, but it kept me away for a long time. And so it continued. And so I lost the fear of prison, so the crime got even worse. Armed robberies, stealing cars. One time we robbed a drug dealer at gunpoint, and my friend got hit by the drug dealer in the car. It was like very messy. My life was very messy. But it wasn't the drugs. It was the cops, it was the judge, it was everything else. So eventually that led me to, I always share about this final kind of my surrender, right? It's living in a stolen car. I had nowhere else to go. I had been in withdrawal. I was in psychosis, out of money, out of cigarettes, out of dope. The car had ran out of gas. It was like very miserable. I was absconding from probation in one state because when I went in to check in with that officer, they wanted to put the ankle monitor on me. And I was like, I'll be right back. And I walked out of that place and never went back. And on the run from the police in another state, right across the river, because I had almost burnt down my mother's house. My psychosis tells me that there's a YouTube version of The Truman Show that's all about Mike, and everyone's in on it. Y'all are paid actors. The white van out there is the production crew. Just total insanity, but I was in it, and I was terrified and believing every minute of it, and so my solution was like, let's put on a show. Let's burn this place to the ground. I'm very grateful that the fire got put out and didn't do any damage. I have had the chance to make amends to my mother, and we have a good relationship today. You haven't met my mother, and that's a whole nother meeting in itself, so we'll skip that. So I'm in this car, and I have no other options. I'm miserable, and I finally am ready to give up. I can't live this way anymore. I'm gonna die. And I had overdosed so many times by then, and like blah blah blah, and it was just like awful. So I made a decision to go to detox. A couple days later, I was in detox. I stayed for their residential program. It was kind of the first time I had been beaten down so hard, because I had been to treatment like, I think 6 times prior. This was my 7th one. And I was just ready. I think I had finally surrendered to the idea of giving up everything for good. And that was my problem. That was my biggest problem, because I would always promise myself, this is the last time I'm using. And I would go to jail for a few weeks. I'd be clean when I'd get out of jail, and I'd ride with it for a little bit, and then a day would come along when I'd be like, well, it's okay to take a Vicodin today, because it's just one Vicodin, and I'll be fine. It's been a good day, or it's been a bad day, or whatever the reason is. I would always fool myself into thinking that taking a hit off of a joint was okay. That just this one thing is going to be fine. And then, like, as we know, as I proved to myself over and over, that it just never worked that way. It would always end in heroin, meth, and handcuffs. So while I was in treatment, my brother passed away from cancer. They let me go out on a pass to hang out with him in hospice. I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity to do that sober, even though I regret not being there for him in the last few months of his life. But I got to hang out with him, we talked, and then I got to just like sit there and watch him die. It was very intense, especially that early in recovery. But I was kind of forced to go back to treatment and be around other sober people, which I hated at the time. That day that he passed away, I was like forced to go to one of their in-house meetings. And I was just like there sobbing, and I was so miserable, but it was like the first time I was able to share in front of a group while crying, and like I made it through that alive. I didn't, and a couple weeks after that, I was like, I just made it through a death in the family, and I did not use. So maybe the rest of this stuff will be not so bad, right? Maybe I can do the rest of life. H9 meetings were coming in. That's how I found my first home group. It's how I found my first sponsor. That home group is, and that sponsor is where I started working the steps. And I just started doing the work. and things started to get better. It's shocking. This thing is working. And they also encouraged me to start doing H&I meetings at that very facility that I had just graduated from. I was super scared to do that, to sit in front of people and talk. It was very frightening to me at the time, but I'm glad I did it because it forced me to get used to it. 20 minutes? Okay, thank you. And, things continued to get better. It's about a year into recovery, maybe a little more, when I found CMA. Tanner was at my first CME meeting, along with a handful of other crazy people. I knew right away that this was my home. I was like, these are my people. This is my home. I had been doing a combination of a few of the A's, and it had been all right, but like CMA, when I heard the readings and met the people, I was like, this is where I'm staying. Shortly after that, I got tricked into area service by this guy. A year sounded like a long time. To commit to something for a year was insane. And so, no regrets about that. It has been one of the best gifts I've ever been given, honestly. And then I had to go turn myself in, because remember I almost burnt down my mother's house and the cops were looking for me? They didn't forget. So, yeah, this was like the first big kind of, oh, fuck life, Why me? I'm doing good now. I shouldn't have to do this. But my sponsor was like, you have to do this. Super scared. We came up with a plan, and I went into the courtroom. Like, the fellowship came up around me and carried me through this entire event, right? They wrote letters on my behalf. I was doing service work. I was taking meetings into treatment centers. I was sponsoring people in the program. Like, was doing all the things. And the judge took all this information in, and I showed up in a suit instead of an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs this time, and was cool with it. Like, he's like, okay, he set the bail at a very reasonably low rate, which was unheard of for me. And I bailed out. I got booked and released on the same day, which for me is kind of crazy because I had done it the other way around in the past. I have been released at breakfast and back to that same jail in the same pod before dinner. I've done that before. So this was a new experience. And then like a year down the road when sentencing came, also very scary, but like people showed up to court with me. I had even more receipts to show that I was living a different life. My original range was 5 to 10 years in prison. To like go into a courtroom with that possibility is very frightening. But that's what we do today. We walk through these things and we don't have to do it alone. And whatever happens, we'll be okay. That's been my experience. So I went into that courtroom and the judge, again, we went through all the information and he's like, I wish that I could just let you walk out of here, but that's not how the system is built. So I'm going to give you 4 months of house arrest. I was like, oh, okay. I walked out of that courtroom 100% a believer that this program can work for anyone. There was not a shred of doubt in my mind after that. Because there was still kind of weird thoughts, but that was the big event where I was like, okay, now I'm 100% in. Did my time there, then the pandemic happened and blah, blah, blah. I got into doing general service shortly after that. I was a delegate. Went to my first conference online because of the pandemic. Really enjoyed that. And just started doing service work. And service work has changed my life. It has gotten me to the point where I can sit in front of a room of people and talk on a microphone and be okay. This wasn't a thing before. I'm confident. I can work well with others, and do everything I can to keep that door open for the next person who wants to try this out. Because I've been given such a gift with this life, especially looking at my past life, such a gift. And it's why I keep doing the service. Someone did it before me, so I feel obligated to do it. And I did a lot of fucked up shit back then, so I have a big price to pay. My life today is amazing. I have a great husband. He's right there. He's also one of us. I decided a few years back that what I was doing for work wasn't fulfilling enough, and I wanted more. And so I went back to school. And so I'm in school to learn how to make video games, which is something I've always wanted to do, and that's going very well. I'm in the process of trying 4 minutes. Oh, I'm at 40? Oh, this guy. He wants me to tell you that I have a 4.0. This heroin junkie tweaker can go back to college and get a 4.0. So crazy. I never would have believed it. It is wild. I'm in the process of applying for internships, so it's starting to get more real that this dream is going to become a reality. I get to travel now. No heroin junkie gets to travel, not safely, or not like they want to. There wasn't enough dope in the world to get me anywhere. Once we're 50 miles away from the dealer, turn the car around. There's no vacations for tweakers and heroin junkies. There just isn't. So it's awesome to be able to go visit places. Another thing I wanted to share about, and I'm getting close to the end, I promise, is moving. We just moved here from Portland in March. And the cool part about being in CMA is there was already friends and family here waiting for us, right? We knew several people already here and in San Jose, and here we are 6-ish months down the road, and it feels like I've lived here for years already because of that. And that's one of the very special things about this. Also, one of the great things about doing general service, because we know sober tweakers all over the world now. Chances are, if I'm visiting a city, especially in the US, I can reach out to someone and say, hey, I'll be there for these days. Can we hit a meeting and go have dinner? And they'll be like, of course. Such a big gift. I can't remember the last time I thought about using in a serious way. That's probably the biggest gift of all. I was so stuck in I can't live life without these substances. I couldn't imagine living life without anything. It just seemed absurd. But here I am, living a very fulfilling and amazing life without any of those substances, and it's such a gift. All I had to do was give up using, and I get to do everything else today. What a trade-off, right? Okay, anything else I want to share about? The gifts of the program just keep happening. And I'm I want to thank the Unity Day people. Anyone who helped do this thing, we appreciate it. Thank you for asking me to speak. It is an honor. And I think I'll close it there.